Hello. Let me check the volume again. Um, yes, hello. Today is the 13th of January, 2025. Listening to the news and our political masters, I sometimes, very often actually, my mind goes back to the past. And I don't know why, but I tried to compare them to someone in history. And since I am retired and I'm not very busy except my own readings, I try to compare or to make up myself, I'm speculating, a sort of a psychological profile of this person. This is just something that comes to my mind. I don't even do it on purpose. I begin to, as if I was a psychiatrist or something, begin to analyze what is behind all this. And today I thought of Napoleon. And I will talk about Napoleon's, what I think, his psychological profile. Uh, and if you want, it's up to you if someone else from today, the present, comes to mind. But I'm going to talk about Napoleon. The ego as a fortress. Napoleon offers a classic psychological and spiritual pattern. The ego not as a tool to be used, but as a fortress to be defended. Power, in his case, worked like a narcotic, not a source of stability, but a way to numb inner fragility. Spiritually, this is the self that cannot tolerate silence, because silence risks collapse. When there is no inner life there. And this leads us to the following questions. When does confidence stop being trusting one's ability and become compensation, overcompensation? What happens when identity fuses with dominance itself? Let me explain. Napoleon, to me, is the prototype of what we might call the dominant self-mythologizer, a figure in whom extraordinary competence coexists with profound insecurity, insecurity marked as certainty. He built a grand narrative around himself, destiny, inevitability, genius. Yet beneath this confidence lay a persistent anxiety, especially in his case about legitimacy. He was a Corsican outsider from Corsica. Well, you know, in Europe, Corsica, French, Italian, I mean, it comes and goes, but felt not 100% French, as it were, a little bit of an outsider, he felt. This is very common, yeah, overcompensation. So a Corsican outsider ruling post-revolutionary France, because confidence could not rest. It had to be constantly renewed. Every victory, Italy, Austerlitz, was immediately converted into a spectacle. All these spectacles, bulletins, monuments, titles, paintings, rituals, buildings, renamed cities. Praise was never enough. He had to escalate. Why? Because validation was not reassurance, it was fuel. Silence felt like erosion. Without reinforcement, the self began to fray. Without continuous reinforcement, the self begins to fray. Criticism, therefore, could not be tolerated. Political dissent, press, opposition, hesitation from allies, these were not engaged as, he didn't see them as ideas to be debated, but had to be neutralized as existential threats. Newspapers were shut down. Generals who hesitated were humiliated or sidelined. Here, criticism, any critique, however well meant, was for him not additional information. It was an assault, not on policy, but on being, his being. The ego was not flexible. It was a fortress, it was fortified. Any crack risked collapse. This pattern becomes even clearer in moments of uncertainty, with his wars in Spain, Russia. Ambiguous, complex situations that required calibration or recalibration. Complex situations instead of reflection. Napoleon doubled down on force. Resistance was interpreted as temporary defiance, never real structural reality. Escalation replaced doubt. Why? Because doubt requires stillness, and stillness and quiet requires a self that can survive self-examination. Expansion felt safer. Consider also his obsession with symbolism. Questions of legitimacy demanded theatrical authority. He crowned himself. Self-coronation, Roman imagery, imperial eagles, comparisons to Caesar and to Charlemagne. When inner fragility, when inner legitimacy is fragile, then this power and this authority must become visible. Identity must be staged in order to feel real. And this extended into his relationships. He valued loyalty over critique, contradiction. Brilliance was rewarded when it mirrored his will. Independent thought, however well meant, independence was punished when it rivaled his. Others were not free, autonomous centers of judgment. They had to be extensions of himself. To share authority felt like self-dissolution. And after defeat always comes at the end. After defeat, Leipzig, Elba, Waterloo, the same mechanism appeared. Losses were rapidly re-mythologized. They were betrayal, fate, destiny, Europe united against genius. Failure never gave rise to introspection. The narrative had to be repaired before the self could fracture. Failure was survivable only if externalized. So he could not stop. There was no such thing as peak power, no stable peace, stable equilibrium. Campaigns continued and continued, even as France was by now exhausted. Peace felt like stagnation. Motion felt like meaning. Rest was danger. Spiritually speaking, silence threatened to reveal the void beneath the role. Across all these moments, a single logic emerges. Confidence is performative, not grounded. Power anesthetizes insecurity, but never really heals it. It never goes away. When identity fuses with dominance, stepping back feels like annihilation. This is why such figures often burn out spectacularly rather than just fade quietly. Napoleon did not merely rule, he had to be seen ruling. That's the thing. Victory was never enough. It had to be named, carved, painted, repeated. Each triumph became proof, not just of strength, but of existence. Because silence for this type is dangerous. Because silence asks questions. Confidence in him did not rest, it advanced. Criticism was not dialogue, it was an attack. To doubt him was to threaten the story that was holding him together. And so doubts had to be crushed, not answered. Power became a narcotic. Each conquest quieted something inside briefly. But then the noise returned, and the only remedy was movement, expansion, another campaign. He crowned himself because waiting for permission felt like erasure. He surrounded himself with symbols because symbols do not argue back. He demanded loyalty because disagreement suggested a world not centered on him. When defeat came, it could not be digested, it could not be absorbed, only narrated. Betrayal, fate, the jealousy of lesser men, anything but reflection and introspection. Reflection required stillness. Stillness required a self that could survive without applause. A self that can survive without continuous applause. This is the tragedy of dominance fused with identity. To stop ruling feels like dying. To step back feels like disappearing. And so the final question is not about ambition or greatness, it's about silence. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when no banners are raised? Who are you when the world does not mention your name? Some men fear enemies. Others fear the moment when there is nothing left to conquer. And then they must finally meet themselves. That's my video for today. Thank you for listening.